And then four adults and one boy helped put on the backings and to make the quilts into warm, loving blankets. Dick and Lily Lund together helped do that. Diane Beeman, Janet Colombo, Jane Stanley Jacobson, Nancy Crawford and her son David. They all sewed together. And then I packed up those quilts and I took them to the children there. And you know what? The joy that those kids received by getting those blankets, it's just a token. But I'll tell you, I, through our interpreter, told those children about our kids here. I said, and I told them names, you know, Parker and Ellie and Mia, they colored these. They helped sew these together for you. And the joy that those children felt was fabulous. And so then I had those kids color more quilt squares. I brought blanket quilt squares. And those children there colored their squares. I have brought them back here because they don't have a sewing machine. And I brought them back here. And my friend Barb Bishop is sewing quilts together with their own quilt squares. And then those will be returned to Haiti, so they will see the product of their artistry. So that is wonderful. We arrived in Port-au-Prince, and let me tell you, the site there, as you see on the TV, that leaves you speechless. It is still horrific. The collapsed and unoccupied buildings, the tents, the street chaos, the lack of infrastructure is beyond words. But I have to say that the deeper you go and the more people you meet, the more you know that love and hope and faith are having the last word there. The visual sights are very difficult, but the people's perseverance is tremendous. Being in Haiti was, for me, a powerful and positive experience, mostly because the Haitian Methodists we worked with were such inspiring people. Our large group broke into 2 teams and worked at 2 different sites. One was doing physical rebuilding on a church in a rural village called Millier. It's about 2 hours from Port-au-Prince. And the other was in a school, at a Methodist school in the city. Both teams were blessed to be able to do activities with school children at each site. So we would work physically during the day, during the heat of the day, and then we would get to do some activities with the children. And those of you who've helped with our Vacation Bible School here can picture this. Our team one day acted out the Good Samaritan, and we had a lot of fun with the children. I was the injured person on the road, and my cousin Clint, who was on the trip, was my donkey, and the Good Samaritan came along and picked me up off the ground and put me on his donkey and carried me off. And the children just roared with laughter. There was a lot of joy with that. And then we spent a few minutes talking about who was the good neighbor, who was the neighbor in that story, the Good Samaritan. And they understood, of course, what it meant to be a neighbor. And we talked about, it's not just that we are your good neighbor. It's also, kids, you can be a good neighbor to others. And so we talked about, for those children, how they also can be the Good Samaritan. It was a wonderful break from the hot work. So that kind of spirit that we saw in this place was tremendous. There is a prayer that I marked, because I wanted to read this one to you, that speaks to that determination. And it's from the same book. Let me read it to you. It's pretty fun. Lord, there is a big devil called discouragement. We ask you to send him away because he is bothering us. I loved that prayer. It is written in Creole here, but I can read it in English, and I'll tell you, if you think about that, discouragement, we ask you to send him away because he is bothering us. Well, the people in Haiti have way more than discouragement. They have a terrible situation there, but their prayer life is very strong and healthy. So, yes, we discovered that our Christian faith in our loving God is alive and well in Haiti. And it was very true as we met people there. I'm going to tell you two stories that gave testimony to that faith. The first is from my team in Melier. I'm the one, our team went out to this village and we're working on this church, rebuilding it. They had a school and church both collapse, and they put together a temporary school building. That was their choice. They chose to get the kids back into school quickly, but they wanted to build the church building solidly, and it would also be a community gathering place as well. And so we worked on the church, and that building unfortunately wasn't very far along, and so most of our work was not painting or simple things. It was moving rock. And so we spent all of those days shoveling loads of rock into wheelbarrows and pushing them up into filling the foundation. The foundation walls had already been built by previous teams, and we were the rock movers. And let me tell you, it was hard and it was hot. And in between the work, we shared friendship, and we had wonderful, simple meals made for us by cooks. And then we worked some more, and then we played with the children, and then we worked some more, and it was hot, and it was a grind. But as some of you may know me a little bit, I like to sing, and I sing. Sometimes out of just unconscious habit. Sort of Norma would know this. I sort of just sing under my breath or I whistle, and this is a gift that has been given to me by my dad. My dad was a singer and a whistler, and so as a child I heard that, and now it's sort of in my bones. So as I was down there digging and moving rock, I would be singing. And it would be a variety of different songs. And this is now, I'm getting back to that. One afternoon, I was digging, and under my breath, I was singing, "See a humma kukanang see a humma kukanang see a humma kukanang." And next to me, I heard a young male voice singing, "See a humma kukanang see a humma kukanang." And I thought, wait a minute, see, that's in Zulu. That is from South Africa. That is not Creole. And I looked over, and there, next to me, digging, was one of my Haitian fellow laborers, and he knew that song. And he was singing away, and this big grin on his face. And so we kept singing, and then I went into English. I looked at it, "We are marching in the light of God," and he kept going. He knew it. "We are marching in the light of God. We are marching." And I'll tell you something. We are singing in the light. And we started digging a lot harder. I'll tell you, because it was fun. It was distracting. That's the good thing about singing, is keeps your mind off of 90-plus degree weather and no shade. And so Jackie and I continued to sing. That was his name. And along with other people joined us. So we went and we found all sorts of verses. We are singing, we are working, we are digging, we are praying. Lots of verses singing in the song. It was fabulous. Well, later that afternoon, we were taking a break, and Jackie came up to me and tapped me, and he wanted to show me something. He didn't speak English, and I just followed him in into this back makeshift kind of storage room in the school building. Was a stack of big paper, and he started flipping through. I didn't know what he was doing, but as he was flipping through the paper, I noticed that it was music that he was flipping through. And about halfway down, it took a long time, halfway down the stack, he gets to a piece of paper, and he holds it up to me, and there was, "See a humba kukanang kweko, see a humba," and we are marching. There, he wanted to show me that piece of music, and then he said, I forgot to tell us at the other services, he said, "I'm in the choir." I think he just said choir. And he's in the church choir, and I didn't know that. We were just diggers up until that point. So then, guess what? We did a lot more singing, a lot of fun singing. We didn't know each other. This little light of mine, and I would sing in English, and he would know that in Creole, or Jesus Loves Me. A lot of the simple songs that we would know, he knew in his own language, and it was so fun to be digging and singing. Then later that evening, I was, we all showered in our solar showers, and it was just a, pretty rustic place to be. And I was out in the little pathway, and those of you who sing unconsciously know that songs keep being repeated over and over in your head. Well, I was back to see a hamba, and I was singing, and out of that kitchen, that wasn't a real kitchen, it was just a kind of a hot plate, and our cooks were back there. Out of this back building come these 4 women with big grits on their face. See and there, I'll tell you, we weren't digging anymore, so we got to dance, and the women and me held hands, and we walked up and down this pathway, singing, we are dancing in the light of God, and it was a joy beyond expression. So I wanted to offer that first story to you about how God is moving and living in all sorts of desperate situations, in the soul, deep down in people. And when we have that shared expression like music, we get that gift. My second story is about Jean-Claude. Jean-Claude was our interpreter. And I know it's a few minutes after 12, but I'm going to tell you the story of Jean-Claude anyway. Jean-Claude was our interpreter, and he's a Methodist young man who has worked for the Methodist Church for 20 years, being an interpreter for different teams that have been assigned to him. So every week he has a different group he's working with. Sometimes it's medical teams, sometimes it's work teams like mine, sometimes it's individuals who are needing to do help with individual people. Jean-Claude, on the day of the earthquake, was interpreting for an American doctor and two nurses in a clinic, a Methodist clinic there in Port-au-Prince, and the roof came down on him, the building collapsed on him and collapsed on the team, and completely squished them. They could not move. A couple of people died. He was alive. He came into our devotion time and told us the story. He asked, could I tell you the story of how God saved me during the earthquake? And of course we wanted to hear. And so he came in and told us that as he was under this collapsed building, he couldn't hear anything, and he couldn't see anything, and he couldn't even see the light of day. It went on and on. He said he heard a voice, and the voice was God, and God spoke to him, and he said to Jean-Claude, there is a way out. And Jean-Claude tells the story, says he heard that voice, he knew it was God. And so time went on, he couldn't move, and he heard the voice again. There is a way out. Well, Jean-Claude said that his cell phone was still in his hand under the rubble. And he said he started to move it. He had been trying to move it, he couldn't move. But he started to move it. And by moving that cell phone and working it, he described it just like I'm doing right now. And he worked it to the surface. And pretty soon, the hand was exposed. He could feel the air and nothing on his hand. And someone saw his hand. And so, someone came and yelled out to him. He then responded. Then there was silence, and he said that was hard because he didn't know if the people had just disappeared. And so it was this long time he waited, but someone came back. And they brought back his cousin, actually. And his cousin, and I don't know how the message, I don't know how that went, and how many hours went by, but they came back and they rescued him. And they dug him out, And to this day, 2 years later, he does have some head injury and some residual headaches. His spine was affected, so he has therapy, and so he takes medicine, but he's back to interpreting for teams like ours, and he was an inspiration because he told us God spoke to him, and he was listening, and he responded by making an effort to get out. And so now he blesses all of us that get to go to Haiti. He also told us that his wife and 2 children survived as well. They were in their own home. The building collapsed, but they also escaped, and so his family is whole, and we are thankful for that. My last thought is this. Mission work is something many different kinds of people can do, young or old or in between. We had a 27-year-old on our trip, and we had 2 people in their 70s. Very wide range of ages, and we had strong people like me, and we had people who physically couldn't do the labor, but they, one woman, Kanina, the way she worked for our team is she took care of some of the organizing and the logistics, because she physically couldn't do the digging. Perfectly fine. If you are interested in being a part of a team like that sometime in the future, I recommend that maybe you come and hear some of the stories I'll tell on Thursday, and I'm going to be talking about specific ways of being part of Methodist